In a future where Earth had become a hub for intergalactic travelers, humans had met many species, some friendly and others hostile. Among them was a warrior race known as the Caldari. They were fierce, strong, and had a reputation for being merciless in battle. On one stormy night, Jackson, an ordinary man, found his life about to change forever. Jackson lived in a small town near a research facility. He worked as a mechanic and loved tinkering with machines. One evening, while working late, he heard a loud crash outside. Curious, he stepped out of the workshop and saw a green light shining brightly in the dark sky. Seconds later, a small spaceship landed in a nearby field. Jackson's heart raced as he approached the glowing craft. Suddenly, the doors flung open, and out stumbled a tall figure. It was a Caldari warrior, her skin shimmering in shades of blue and green. She looked injured and stumbled to the ground. Jackson was terrified. He had heard stories of Caldari warriors, but he had never imagined meeting one. "Please don't kill me, human," she pleaded, looking up at him with big, glowing eyes. "I'll warm your bed." Jackson was taken aback. "What do you mean?" he stammered. The warrior was on her knees, begging him, and he didn't know how to react. "My name is Kalira," she said, her voice shaky. "I only wish to survive. My ship was damaged in a battle and I need shelter. I swear I mean no harm." Jackson was torn. This was a Caldari. She could be lying, but something in her eyes made him hesitate. He remembered the stories he had heard about their terrible power, but he also saw a vulnerable being before him. "Why should I trust you?" he asked. "Because I have no weapons, and I am at your mercy," Kalira replied, lowering her head as if in submission. "I promise to help you in any way I can if you let me stay. I can cook, clean, whatever you need." Jackson thought about it for a moment. He imagined how strange it would be to have a Caldari warrior living with him. "Fine, but you have to promise not to attack me," he said cautiously. "I promise," Kalira said, raising her hand as if swearing an oath. Jackson helped her up and led her to his small home. He felt a strange mix of fear and excitement as they walked together. Once, inside, Jackson bandaged her wounds. Kalira winced but was grateful for his help. Despite her fierce appearance, there was a gentleness to her as she thanked him. "You are kind, human. Not all of my people would have done this," she said. As days passed, Kalira revealed more about herself. She told Jackson about her planet, how their society valued strength and honor, and how they were often misunderstood by other races. They formed an unusual friendship, sharing stories and laughing together. Jackson found Kalira to be much more than a warrior. She was intelligent, funny, and had a great appreciation for Earth's food. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the stars, Kalira leaned closer. "You know, I've never seen the stars from a place like this," she said softly. "It's beautiful." Jackson smiled, feeling a connection he had never expected. "Earth has its charms. You just have to look for them." However, their peace was shattered one night. Jackson was jolted from sleep by loud noises outside. He rushed to the window and saw figures approaching. Caldari warriors had come to retrieve Kalira. Panic surged through him as he realized they wouldn't hesitate to fight. Knowing Kalira could be killed, he quickly shook her awake. "Kalira, we need to hide!" he urged. She nodded, her eyes wide with fear. They hurried to the back of the house and crouched behind a stack of old tires. Kalira peeked out to see the warriors scanning the area, their eyes sharp and fierce. "They won't stop until they find me," she whispered. "I can't let them take you," Jackson replied. "You're my friend." Kalira looked at him, touched by his bravery. "I will fight if I must, but I don't want you to get hurt." Before they could decide what to do, the warriors burst into Jackson's house. He could hear their voices, shouting commands. "We know you are here!" one yelled. Jackson's heart raced. They had to act fast. "Quick! This way!" Jackson said, leading Kalira to a hidden cellar he had built under his workshop for emergencies. They slipped inside just as the door to the house exploded open. The warriors searched the house thoroughly, but Jackson had made sure the entrance to the cellar was well hidden behind some boxes. They could hear the warriors yelling, becoming more frustrated as they failed to find Kalira. As the minutes ticked by, Jackson felt a mix of fear and determination. "We can't let them take you," he said quietly to Kalira. "We'll find a way to escape." Finally, one of the warriors shouted, "We'll burn the house down! She cannot hide from us forever!" Jackson's heart sank. He knew they had to act. "Kalira, if we stay here, we might die. We must try to get out," he said urgently. Kalira took a deep breath, and together they opened the cellar door, stepping out into the night. With stealth, they moved toward the edge of the woods. The warriors were distracted, looking for them inside the house. Jackson gripped Kalira's hand tightly, wishing his heart would stop racing. Just then, a loud explosion shook the ground. The warriors had set the house on fire. Jackson could see the flames rising high, silhouetting him and Kalira against the light. "This way!" he shouted, pulling Kalira deeper into the woods. Finally, they reached a small clearing where Jackson had stashed a motorcycle he used for work. "Get on!" he ordered, and Kalira climbed on behind him. As he revved the engine, he saw silhouettes of warriors coming out of the smoke. They had found them. With a roar, Jackson shot off into the night, dodging trees and making sharp turns. He felt Kalira's strong grip around him, but he didn't dare look back. Deep down, he knew they were far from safe. As they sped into the forest, Kalira glanced at him, her eyes shining. "You saved my life," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "And you've changed mine," Jackson replied, focusing on getting them to safety. Their adventure was just beginning. Even facing danger together, they found courage in each other, ready for whatever the universe had in store. The biting wind of the ice planet Xylos howled around Captain Elara Vance, chilling her to the bone despite her thermal gear. She squinted, the harsh glare reflecting off the endless white expanse. Her mission was simple: scout for potential, mining resources, and report back. But Xylos had other plans, throwing a brutal blizzard her way, separating her from her team. Now, alone and lost, Elara stumbled through the blinding snow, her energy reserves dwindling. Just when she thought she couldn't take another step, she saw it, a faint light in the distance. Hope surged through her, and she pushed forward, her boots crunching in the deep snow. The light led her to a cave, its entrance partially hidden by a snowdrift. Hesitantly, she entered, the temperature instantly rising a few degrees. Inside, the cave opened into a large chamber, illuminated by strange, glowing crystals embedded in the walls. And in the center of the chamber, kneeling on the ground, was an alien. Ilara's hand instinctively went to her plasma pistol. The alien was unlike anything she had ever seen. Tall and slender, with skin like polished obsidian, she had large, luminous silver eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. Her head was adorned with delicate branching antlers, and she wore a simple tunic of woven plant fibers. But it was the expression on her face that stopped Elara in her tracks. Pure, unadulterated fear. "Don't kill me, human!" the alien pleaded, her voice a melodic whisper that echoed in the cave. "I'll warm your bed." Elara lowered her pistol, confusion warring with suspicion. "What? What did you say?" The alien flinched, her silver eyes widening. "Please, I mean no harm." "My name is Lyra. My people, the Sylvans, are hospitable. We offer warmth to those who are cold, shelter to those who are lost. I can warm your bed, keep you safe from the cold." Elara stared at her, trying to make sense of the situation. This alien, Lyra, was offering herself As a heat source? It was absurd. Yet the desperation in Lyra's eyes seemed genuine. "Why would you do that?" Ilara asked, her voice cautious. "It is our way," Lyra replied, lowering her gaze. "The cold takes many lives on Xylos. We help each other survive." Ilara considered her options. She was stranded, freezing, and alone. Lyra, despite her alien appearance, seemed harmless. And the thought of having a warm body next to her in this icy wasteland was undeniably appealing. "All right," Ilara said, making a decision. "I won't kill you. But I don't want you to warm my bed in the way you're implying. I just need warmth, a place to rest." Lyra looked up, relief flooding her face. "Thank you, human. You honor me." Ilara spent the next few days in the cave with Lyra. The alien proved to be a surprisingly good companion. She knew the cave intimately, pointing out edible plants and showing Ilara how to use the glowing crystals to purify water. She spoke of her people, the Sylvans, who lived in harmony with the planet, their culture deeply intertwined with the rhythms of nature. As Ilara learned more about Lyra, her initial suspicion began to fade. She saw Lyra's genuine kindness, her deep respect for life, and her unwavering commitment to helping others. Lyra, in turn, was fascinated by Ilara and her stories of the human race, their technology, and their vast empire among the stars. One evening, as they sat by a makeshift fire, Ilara asked Lyra about her antlers. "They're beautiful," she said, reaching out to touch them. Lyra flinched slightly, then allowed Ilara to run her fingers along the smooth, velvety surface. "They are sensitive," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "They are also a sign of maturity, of status within my clan. Do they have any other purpose?" Ilara asked, curiosity piqued. Lyra hesitated, then looked into Ilara's eyes. "They can sense emotions," she said. "They resonate with the feelings of those around me." Ilara's eyes widened. "So you can tell what I'm feeling?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, I can sense your curiosity, your respect, and also a growing affection." Ilara felt her cheeks flush. She hadn't realized how close she had grown to Lyra in such a short time, but it was true. She was starting to feel something for the alien, a connection that transcended species and culture. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble. The glowing crystals in the walls flickered, and a low, guttural growl echoed through the cave. Lyra's eyes widened in terror. "The krill!" she gasped. "They found us!" "The krill? What are they?" Ilara asked, grabbing her plasma pistol. "Monsters," Lyra said, her voice trembling. "Creatures of pure darkness. They hunt in packs, driven by an insatiable hunger. We must hide." But it was too late. A swarm of grotesque creatures poured into the cave, their eyes glowing red in the dim light. They were tall and gaunt, with razor-sharp claws and teeth. They snarled and hissed, their attention immediately focused on Ilara and Lyra. "Stay behind me!" Ilara shouted, firing her plasma pistol. The bolts of energy seared through the krill, but more kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Lyra, despite her fear, didn't cower. She grabbed a sharp piece of crystal and stood beside Ilara, ready to defend herself. "We fight together," she said, her voice firm. The battle was fierce and desperate. Ilara fought with all her training, her plasma pistol spitting out bolts of energy, while Lyra used her agility and knowledge of the cave to her advantage, striking at the krill with her crystal shard. But they were outnumbered. The krill swarmed them, their claws tearing at their clothes and skin. Ilara felt a searing pain in her arm as one of the creatures raked its claws across her flesh. Just when she thought they were about to be overwhelmed, Lyra did something unexpected. She closed her eyes, focused her energy, and let out a piercing scream. The sound resonated through the cave, amplified by the glowing crystals. The krill froze, their bodies trembling. They recoiled from the sound, their eyes filled with terror. Lyra screamed again, and the creatures began to flee, scrambling over each other to escape the cave. Within moments, the cave was empty. Ilara stood panting, her body bruised and bleeding. She looked at Lyra, who was trembling and exhausted. What was that?" Ilara asked, her voice hoarse. Lyra collapsed to her knees, her antlers drooping. "A sylvan scream," she said weakly, "a sound of pure pain and rage. It is a last resort." Ilara rushed to Lyra's side, helping her to sit up. She examined her wounds, relieved to see that they were not too serious. "You saved us," Ilara said, her voice filled with gratitude. "You saved my life." Lyra looked up at Ilara, her silver eyes filled with a mixture of exhaustion and relief. "We saved each other," she said. In that moment, Ilara knew that her feelings for Lyra were more than just affection. She had formed a deep bond with this alien, a connection forged in the crucible of survival. As the blizzard outside finally subsided, Ilara contacted her team and guided them to the cave. When they arrived, they were surprised to find her not only alive, but also accompanied by an alien. Ilara explained everything to her team, and while they were initially skeptical, they quickly realized that Lyra was no threat. In fact, she proved to be invaluable, guiding them through the treacherous terrain and helping them locate valuable mineral deposits. As Ilara prepared to leave Xylos, she knew that she couldn't leave Lyra behind. She couldn't imagine her life without the alien who had saved her life, who had shown her the true meaning of hospitality, and who had warmed not just her bed, but also her heart. "Lyra," Ilara said, taking the alien's hand, "will you come with me? Come back to my world, see the stars, and meet my people?" Lyra looked at Ilara, her silver eyes filled with hope and trepidation. "Your world, would they accept me?" "They will accept you," Ilara said, squeezing Lyra's hand, "because I accept you, and that's all that matters." And so, Ilara and Lyra boarded the spaceship, leaving behind the icy wasteland of Xylos and embarking on a new adventure together, a journey that would take them to the stars and beyond, proving that love and understanding can blossom even in the most unexpected of places. In a distant future, Earth had become a place of wonder, filled with incredible technology and strange creatures. Humans had reached out into the universe, exploring new planets and making contact with alien species. Among them was a warrior from the planet Zarok named Lyra. She was tall, with shimmering green skin and eyes that glowed like stars. Despite her fearsome appearance, Lyra had a gentle heart. One day, during an expedition on a foreign planet, Lyra's ship was hit by a meteor shower. She crash-landed in a forest, far from her home. Dazed and confused, she stepped out of her ship, realizing she was on Earth. As she took in her surroundings, she heard a voice behind her. "Hands up, alien!" shouted a young man named Mark. He was a soldier, part of a human task force that monitored alien activity. He had a gun pointed directly at Lyra. Lyra held up her hands, her heart racing. She was unarmed and terrified. "Please don't shoot," she cried, dropping to her knees. "I come in peace." Mark was taken aback. He had expected an aggressive alien, but instead he saw fear in her eyes. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice firm but unsure. "I just want to go home," Lyra pleaded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I am not your enemy. I can help you. I can be of service." Mark narrowed his eyes, unsure of what to think. He signaled for his team to approach. There were two other soldiers, Sarah and Tom, and they moved closer, weapons ready. Sarah had a soft spot for animals and even aliens. She could see the vulnerability in Lyra. "Mark, wait," Sarah said. "We should listen to her. Maybe She means no harm. Tom nodded, but remained cautious. It could be a trick. We need to be careful. Lyra could sense the tension among the humans. I swear, I mean no harm. I have knowledge of technology, medicine, and can help. You understand the universe better. Her voice shook, but her sincerity shone through. Mark hesitated. He was trained to mistrust aliens, but there was something about Lyra that made him pause. Why should we trust you? He asked. I can warm your bed, Lyra said, surprising. Them. I don't mean it in a bad way. I can provide comfort, warmth, and companionship. I have gifts that can help heal and protect you. Sarah chuckled softly. That's an interesting way of putting it. She stepped closer, intrigued. What kind of gifts? Lyra took a deep breath. On my world, we can create a form of energy that can help heal wounds and provide warmth, both physically and emotionally. I can share this with you. Mark frowned. And why should we believe you? You could be lying to save your life. I would never lie. I have lost everything by crashing here. My ship, my friends, and now I am alone. Tears fell down her green cheeks. It was clear she was in despair. Tom lowered his weapon slightly, unsure. What if we let you prove it? But you have to promise to cooperate. Lyra nodded vigorously. Yes, I swear I will stay peaceful. I just want to help and find a way back home. Mark looked at his team, weighing the risks. All right. We'll give you a chance, but you will stay under guard. Lyra nodded. She was relieved and grateful. Slowly, Sarah took the lead, guiding her to their base, a small encampment nearby. As they walked, Lyra shared stories of her home, of the beautiful landscapes and the vibrant culture of her people. The soldiers listened, captivated by her tales. They learned that her kind valued kindness, strength, and the bonds of friendship. Later that night, they gathered around a campfire. The stars twinkled brightly above them, and the air was filled with a sense of camaraderie. Lyra began to show them her gift. She closed her eyes, bringing her hands together. From her palms, a soft glow emerged, illuminating her face with a warm light. With a wave of her hand, she sent a warm energy toward Mark, who winced from a shoulder injury sustained during training. To everyone's surprise, the pain eased almost instantly, and he was able to move his arm freely. Tom and Sarah exchanged glances, amazed at what they had just witnessed. Wow, Tom said, astonished. That's incredible. Lyra opened her eyes, a smile adorning her face. I can help you with more than just pain. My people believe in the power of emotional warmth as well. We create bonds through our energies, connecting with those who need us. As the night wore on, they found themselves laughing and sharing stories. Lyra's presence brought them comfort in ways they had never expected. Slowly, they began to see her not as an alien, but as a friend. Days turned into weeks, and they worked together, fixing Lyra's ship and learning from each other's skills. Mark, Sarah, and Tom developed a strong bond with Lyra. She had helped them heal physically and emotionally, teaching them lessons about trust, friendship, and hope. However, trouble was on the horizon. An intergalactic bounty hunter had picked up on Lyra's signal and was tracking her down, believing she held valuable secrets. One night, as they huddled together, the bounty hunter struck their camp. "Give me the alien," he shouted. "Weapons drawn." The soldiers quickly grabbed their guns, ready to defend Lyra. "No! Wait!" Lyra said, stepping in front of them. "I will go with you, but please spare their lives." Mark yelled, "No! We won't let you go." But Lyra looked at them, her eyes full of sadness. "I would rather face him alone than risk your lives." The team knew they couldn't let her make that sacrifice. "We fight together," Sarah stated, her voice steady. With quick thinking, they devised a plan. They worked as a team, using everything Lyra had taught them to fend off the bounty hunter. The fight was fierce, but unity gave them strength. Finally, they managed to push him back, forcing him to retreat. Breathless and shaken, they realized the bond they had formed was strong enough to overcome fear and danger. They turned to Lyra, who smiled through her tears. "Thank you for not giving up on me. Together we can face anything," she said, realizing that friendship was the greatest gift of all. With the threat gone and her ship finally repaired, Lyra prepared to return home. The team gathered for one last moment together, promises of keeping in touch, lingering in the air. "Don't forget us, Lyra," Mark said, his voice thick with emotion. "I will carry your warmth in my heart," she replied, giving them each a hug, the energy flowing between them stronger than ever. As Lyra flew into the stars, she knew she had gained not just friends, but a family on a distant planet. And she would always remember the night she pleaded, "Don't kill me, human. I'll warm your bed." A plea that turned into a story of trust, courage, and the power of connection. The biting wind of the ice planet Xylos howled like a banshee, tearing at Anya's exposed skin. Her breath puffed out in white clouds as she trudged through the knee-deep snow, the plasma rifle heavy in her gloved hands. She was alone, stranded, after her scout ship had been shot down during the initial skirmishes of the war. The war between humans and the Krill, a race of technologically advanced insectoid aliens, had been raging for years. Now, it had brought her to this frozen hell. Anya was a survivor. She had to be. The memory of her parents, lost in the first Krill invasion of Earth, fueled her every step. She would live, she would fight, and she would avenge them. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Behind a jagged ice formation, she saw a figure huddled against the wind. Krill. Her grip tightened on the rifle. This was it, a fight to the death, here in the desolate wasteland. She approached cautiously, her heart pounding in her chest. As she rounded the ice formation, she stopped dead in her tracks. It was a Krill warrior, clad in bio-armor that was now cracked and damaged. But it wasn't raising a weapon. It was kneeling, its large, multifaceted eyes wide with what looked like fear? Anya aimed the rifle at its head, her finger hovering over the trigger. "Krill scum," she spat, the word laced with venom. "Prepare to die." Then the Krill did something unexpected. It spoke, its voice a synthesized rasp that sounded almost pleading. "Don't kill me, human. I'll warm your bed." Anya stared in disbelief. Had she heard correctly? This alien warrior, a member of the species that had slaughtered billions, was offering intimacy? Disgust and anger warred within her. "What did you say?" she growled, her grip tightening on the rifle. "Please," the Krill repeated, its voice trembling. "My thermal regulators are damaged. I will freeze if you leave me here. I can keep you warm in exchange for shelter." Anya lowered the rifle slightly, her mind reeling. This was absurd. This had to be a trick. But the Krill's eyes held a desperate sincerity that she couldn't ignore. And the wind was getting colder, biting deeper into her exposed skin. "Why should I trust you?" she asked, her voice hard. "You're a Krill. You'd kill me the first chance you get." "I swear," the Krill said, bowing its head low, "I will not harm you. I am different. My name is Zira. I was a bioengineer before the war. I never wanted this." Anya studied Zira carefully. The Krill's bio-armor was indeed damaged, and she could see the alien shivering beneath it. Maybe, just maybe, this was an opportunity. A chance to learn more about the enemy, to gain an advantage in the war. "Get up," she commanded, gesturing, with the rifle. And don't try anything stupid. Zira rose slowly, its movements stiff and awkward. It was taller than Anya, but its posture was submissive. As they walked together through the snow, Anya couldn't shake the feeling that she was making a terrible mistake. They reached a small cave Anya had found earlier. It wasn't much, but it offered some protection from the wind. Anya gestured for Zira to enter first, keeping the rifle trained on its back. Inside, the cave was dark and damp. Anya managed to start a small fire using some scavenged fuel cells. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows on the cave walls, illuminating Zira's alien features. Anya watched Zira warily as it huddled near the fire, its multifaceted eyes reflecting the flames. She still didn't trust it, not one bit, but she couldn't deny that the krill's presence was radiating heat, making the cave noticeably warmer. "Take off your armor," she ordered. "I want to see what you're hiding." Zira hesitated for a moment, then slowly began to unlatch the bio-armor. Piece by piece, the chitinous plates fell away, revealing the krill's alien body. Its skin was a pale blue, and its limbs were long and slender. Anya couldn't help but stare. It was both repulsive and strangely beautiful. Once the armor was removed, Zira shivered violently. I am cold," it stammered. Anya hesitated. She knew what Zira wanted. She knew what it had offered. But the thought of sharing her body heat with an alien, with the enemy, made her stomach churn. But the wind howled outside and the fire was slowly dying. She was running out of options. "Fine," she said, her voice tight. "But if you try anything, I'll kill you, understand?" Zira nodded eagerly, its eyes wide with gratitude. Anya took a deep breath and lay down on the cold cave floor, wrapping her arms around herself for warmth. Zira hesitated for a moment, then slowly lay down beside her, its body pressed close to hers. Anya tensed, every muscle in her body screaming, in protest. But as Zira's body heat enveloped her, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. It was warmer than she had been in days. Slowly, cautiously, she began to relax. The fire crackled, casting dancing shadows on the cave walls. The wind howled outside, but inside the cave it was warm and relatively safe. As the days turned into nights, a strange sort of truce developed between Anya and Zira. Anya learned that Zira was indeed a bioengineer, forced into service by the Krill military. Zira, in turn, learned about Anya's past, about the loss of her parents, about her burning desire for revenge. They were from different worlds, different species, but they were both trapped in this frozen hell, both desperate for survival. And in their shared desperation, a fragile connection began to form. One night, as they lay huddled together for warmth, Anya found herself looking into Zira's multifaceted eyes. She saw not an enemy, but a creature in pain, a creature longing for peace. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why did the Krill attack Earth?" Zira hesitated, then spoke in a low voice. "Our resources were dwindling. We needed a new home. Earth was suitable." Anya felt a surge of anger. "So you just decided to take it? To kill billions of people?" "It was necessary," Zira said, its voice barely a whisper. "But I never wanted it. I always believed there was another way." Anya stared at Zira, searching for any sign of deception. But she saw only honesty, only regret. Slowly, she reached out and touched Zira's face. The alien's skin was smooth and cool to the touch. Zira flinched at first, then leaned into her hand. "Maybe," Anya said, her voice trembling. "Maybe there is another way." The war was still raging. The future was uncertain. But in that small, ice-cold cave, a human and a Krill warrior had found a moment of connection, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. Whether that hope could survive the war remained to be seen. But for now, it was enough. Anya closed her eyes, the alien's warmth enveloping her, and allowed herself to dream of a future where humans and krill could coexist, a future where the killing would finally stop. The biting wind of the ice planet howled like a banshee, clawing at Commander Eva Rostova as she trudged through the knee-deep snow. Her breath plumed white in the frigid air, each exhale a testament to the futility of their mission. They were stranded, light years from Earth, their ship crippled by a rogue asteroid field, and the only habitable planet in the system was a frozen wasteland. "Anything, Commander?" Sergeant Miller's voice crackled through the comm. He was scouting ahead, his heat signature a faint blip on Eva's scanner. "Nothing but ice and despair, Miller," Eva replied, her voice tight. "Keep your eyes peeled. We need shelter before nightfall." They had been searching for days, their hope dwindling with each passing sunset. The planet, designated LX-492, offered little more than frozen rock and biting winds. They were running out of supplies, and the crew's morale was plummeting faster than the temperature. Suddenly, Miller's voice, laced with urgency, broke through the comm. "Commander, you need to see this. I've found something strange." Ava's heart leaped. Strange was good. Strange meant possibility. She adjusted her thermal gear and followed Miller's signal, her boots crunching on the frozen ground. She found him standing before a cave entrance, his face a mixture of awe and apprehension. The cave was shrouded in shadow, the entrance, framed by jagged ice formations that resembled teeth. "What is it, Miller?" Eva asked, her hand instinctively resting on her sidearm. "I don't know, Commander," Miller said, his voice barely a whisper. "But I'm picking up a strong energy signature from inside. And I think I hear something." Eva drew her weapon, activating its light. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing a cavern that glowed with an unnatural luminescence. Strange crystalline formations lined the walls, emitting a soft, pulsating light. And in the center of the cave, bathed in the eerie glow, was an alien. It was unlike anything Eva had ever seen. Tall and slender, with skin the color of amethyst, the alien knelt on the ice, its large, silver eyes, filled with a desperate plea, were fixed on Eva. It wore a strange, shimmering garment that seemed to be woven from light itself, but it was the words that came from the alien's mouth that truly shocked Eva. Spoken in perfect, if slightly accented, English, the alien pleaded, "Don't kill me, human. I'll warm your bed." Eva froze, her mind reeling. The situation was absurd, surreal. An alien on its knees, offering itself as a bed warmer? "What? What did you say?" Eva stammered, lowering her weapon slightly. The alien's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Please, human. My name is Lyra. My people, they are gone. The cold took them. I am the last. If you kill me, my line ends. But if you spare me, I can be of use. I can provide warmth." Miller coughed nervously. "Commander, are you sure about this?" Eva ignored him, her gaze fixed on Lyra. She saw not a threat, but a creature desperate for survival, clinging to hope in the face of oblivion. And perhaps, just perhaps, Lyra could be the key to their own survival. "Why should we trust you?" Eva asked, her voice cold but measured. "You could be leading us into a trap." Lyra shook her head, her long dark hair swaying around her face. "I have no reason to deceive you. My people were peaceful. We had no weapons, no defenses. We only knew how to survive and to keep warm." Eva considered her options. They were stranded, facing certain death from the cold. They needed shelter, they needed warmth, and they needed to find a way to repair their ship. Lyra might be their only hope. "What do you mean you can provide warmth?" Eva asked. Lyra hesitated, then lowered her gaze.
My people, we have a unique physiology. We can generate heat. Internally, it is a survival mechanism passed down through generations. I can share my warmth with you.
Eva's mind raced. It sounded unbelievable, and yet, looking at Lyra, she saw only sincerity. Sergeant Miller, Eva said, turning to her second-in-command. Scan her, thoroughly. I want to know everything about her physiology, her energy signature, everything. Miller nodded and set to work, his scanner humming as he moved around Lyra. While Miller worked, Eva continued to question Lyra. She learned about Lyra's people, their history, their culture. They were a gentle race, adapted to the harsh environment of LX-492. They lived in harmony with the planet, drawing energy from the crystalline formations that lined the caves. Miller finished his scan and approached Eva, his face etched with disbelief. Commander, it's true. Her body generates an incredible amount of heat. And her energy signature, it's off the charts. I've never seen anything like it. Eva nodded, her decision made. Lyra, she said, turning back to the alien. We will spare you, but you will help us. You will provide warmth. You will help us find shelter, and you will share your knowledge of this planet. Lyra's eyes widened with relief. Thank you, human, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. You will not regret this. And so an unlikely alliance was forged. Eva, the hardened commander, and Lyra, the last of her kind, joined forces to survive the frozen wasteland. Lyra led them deeper into the cave system, to a chamber where the crystalline formations glowed with an intense heat. The chamber was naturally insulated, providing a refuge from the biting wind outside. As Lyra had promised, she shared her warmth with them. Huddled together, the crew felt a surge of heat emanating from her body, chasing away the bone-chilling cold. For the first time in days, they felt hope, but their survival was far from guaranteed. They still needed to repair their ship, and the planet held many dangers. But with Lyra by their side, they had a chance to survive, to return home, and to perhaps learn something about the universe and themselves along the way. As Eva lay beside Lyra, sharing her warmth, she couldn't help but wonder what the future held. She had come to LX-492 expecting to find nothing but ice and despair. Instead, she had found an alien, a companion, and a glimmer of hope in the darkest of nights. The words of the alien still rang in her ears. Don't kill me, human. I'll warm your bed. It was an absurd request, but it had saved them all, and as she drifted off to sleep, she knew that their journey had just begun. The biting wind of the ice planet Xylos howled around Captain Eva Rostova, chilling her to the bone despite the thermal layers she wore. Her breath plumed in the thin atmosphere, each exhale a ghostly reminder of the hostile environment. Around her, the surviving members of her squad huddled, their faces grim. Their ship, the Icarus, was a mangled wreck half buried in a snowdrift, a victim of a surprise attack by the indigenous Xylosian warriors. Report, Eva commanded, her voice tight. Sergeant Miller, his face bruised and bleeding, saluted wearily. Captain, we lost half the squad in the initial attack. The Icarus is beyond repair. We're stranded. Eva's heart sank. Stranded on Xylos meant almost certain death. The Xylosians were a fierce tribal species, known for their brutality and xenophobia. They hadn't made contact with humans before, and their first encounter had been explosive. How long until the emergency beacon reaches Earth? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Best case scenario, days, Miller replied. Worst case, never. Xylos is on the fringes of explored space, Captain. We're on our own. Eva surveyed her remaining squad, 10 souls battered, bruised, and terrified. Their weapons were functional, but ammunition was limited. Their chances of survival were slim, bordering on non-existent. "All right," she said, forcing a note of confidence into her voice. "We move out. We need to find shelter, a defensible position, and we need to ration our supplies. Let's go." They trudged through the snow, the wind whipping at them, the landscape a monotonous expanse of white. Hours passed, and their hope dwindled with the fading light. Just as despair threatened to consume them, they stumbled upon a cave, partially concealed by a snowdrift. "This is it," Eva announced. "Miller, Jackson, set up a perimeter. The rest of you inside. Let's get a fire going." The cave offered a small respite from the wind, but the temperature was still frigid. They managed to gather some dry brush and coaxed a small fire to life, its flickering flames casting dancing shadows on the cave walls. As they huddled around the fire, trying to regain some feeling in their extremities, a guttural roar echoed from the cave entrance. Everyone scrambled for their weapons, fear flashing in their eyes. Standing in the entrance, silhouetted against the fading light, was a Xylosian warrior. Taller and broader than any human, with thick, corded muscles and skin the color of granite, it was a terrifying sight. Its eyes, glowing with a predatory intensity, fixed on them. But it wasn't alone. Behind it, several more Xylosian warriors emerged, their spears raised, their faces contorted in expressions of savage fury. "Stand your ground!" Eva yelled, raising her pulse rifle. The battle was short and brutal. The Xylosians were fierce, but the humans were armed with superior technology. Pulse rifles roared and Xylosian warriors fell, but the humans were outnumbered and they were tiring. Eva fought with a desperate courage, her rifle spitting bolts of energy. She took down 2 warriors, but she knew it was only a matter of time before they were overwhelmed. Suddenly, a Xylosian warrior lunged at her, its spear aimed at her chest. Eva reacted instinctively, raising her rifle to block the blow. The spear struck the rifle, knocking it from her grasp. The warrior roared in triumph, raising its spear again for the killing blow. Eva closed her eyes, bracing for the end. But the blow never came. She opened her eyes to see the warrior frozen, its spear hovering inches from her face. Its eyes, which had been filled with rage, were now wide with a strange mixture of fear and something else. Then, to Eva's utter astonishment, the warrior dropped its spear and fell to its knees. It lowered its head, exposing the back of its neck, a gesture of complete submission. "Don't kill me, human," the warrior pleaded, its voice a guttural rasp, but understandable thanks to the universal translator implanted in Eva's ear. "I'll warm your bed." Eva stared at the kneeling warrior, her mind reeling. What was happening? Why was this fearsome warrior begging for its life? And what did it mean by warm your bed? The other Xylosian warriors, who had been about to attack, froze at the sound of their comrade's plea. They looked at each other in confusion, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and outrage. "Traitor!" one of them roared, raising its spear, but the kneeling warrior didn't flinch. It kept its head bowed, its eyes fixed on the ground. Eva, still in shock, lowered her own weapon. She looked at the kneeling warrior, trying to understand what was going on. It was female, she realized, noticing the subtle curves beneath its muscular frame. And it was offering herself to her? What do you mean?" Eva stammered, her voice barely a whisper. The female warrior raised its head slightly, its eyes pleading. "Our tribe. We are dying. The ice. It is claiming us. We need warmth. Your kind. You are warm. If you spare me, I will warm your bed. I will give you children. Our tribe, it will survive." Eva stared at the warrior, her mind struggling to process the information. The Xylosians weren't just brutal warriors. They were a dying race, desperate to survive, and they saw humans as a way to do it.
You want to breed with us? Ava asked, her voice laced with disbelief. The female warrior nodded, her eyes still pleading. Yes, human. It is the only way. Ava looked at her squad, their faces a mixture of shock and disgust. Miller was shaking his head, his hand resting on his pulse rifle. Captain, you can't be serious, he said, his voice low. You're not actually considering this, are you? Ava didn't answer. She looked back at the female warrior, kneeling in the snow, offering herself as a sacrifice for her tribe. It was a barbaric solution, a desperate measure. But it was also strangely compelling. They were stranded on a hostile planet, with little hope of rescue. They were facing certain death. But here, kneeling before her, was a chance at survival. A chance to ensure that their genes, their humanity, lived on. It was a difficult choice, a moral dilemma of epic proportions. But as Ava looked into the pleading eyes of the female warrior, she knew what she had to do. All right, she said, her voice firm. I accept your offer. A collective gasp went through the remaining Xylosian warriors. The female warrior raised her head, her eyes filled with hope. You will spare me? She asked, her voice trembling. I will spare you, Ava replied. But you must swear to protect us. You must swear to help us survive. The female warrior nodded vigorously. I swear it, human. I will protect you with my life. And with that, an unlikely alliance was forged, a desperate pact between two species on the brink of extinction. The fate of the humans and the Xylosians now rested on the shoulders of a human captain and an alien warrior, bound together by a shared need for survival and the promise of warmth in a cold, unforgiving world. On a desolate planet called Gazara, a young alien warrior named Lyra knelt in the cold, dark cave. Her bright blue skin shone slightly in the dim light, and her silver hair flowed down her back like liquid stars. She had just survived a fierce battle against the human soldiers who had invaded her world. They came seeking resources, but she refused to let them destroy her home. Lyra's hands trembled, not from fear, but from the cold. The fight had taken all her strength, and now she was alone. She thought about her friends, her family, and how she would never see them again if she failed to survive this moment. Suddenly, she heard footsteps approaching. Panic surged through her, and she quickly hid behind a rock. The footsteps grew, louder, and soon a human soldier named Jack entered the cave. He was rugged, with a scar running down his cheek, but there was something kind in his eyes. When Jack saw Lyra, he raised his weapon instinctively, but then hesitated. She looked fragile, and he was tired of fighting. Please, don't kill me, human, Lyra begged, rising slightly from her hiding spot. I can help you. Jack lowered his gun slightly, but kept it aimed at her. Help me? How can you help me? You aliens have attacked us. I am not like them, she said, her voice shaking. I want to save my world, just as you want to protect yours. If you kill me, you will have lost a chance for peace. I can warm your bed during the cold nights. I can be your ally. Jack furrowed his brow, unsure. The other soldiers back at camp were not so easy to convince. They saw aliens as enemies, monsters to be eradicated. But something about Lyra's sincerity made him pause. What do you mean? Jack asked, lowering his weapon a little more, his curiosity getting the best of him. I know the way to the caves where the warm crystals grow. They can provide heat and light. I can show you how to use them, and together we could avoid the conflict that's coming. Jack thought about it. They had been struggling with the cold on the planet. The nights were bitter, and supplies were running low. If what she said was true, this could be a turning point. And why should I trust you? He asked. I can prove myself, she answered firmly. Let me help you first.
You have everything to gain and nothing to lose. Jack studied her for a moment. The cave felt heavy with tension, but he sensed honesty in her plea. He sighed and finally lowered his weapon completely. Fine. Show me this place. Relief washed over Lyra's face. Thank you. I promise you won't regret this. She moved carefully, aware that Jack still watched every move. Together, they ventured deeper into the caves. The chilled walls seemed to whisper ancient secrets, and the atmosphere shifted with every step. They took. After a while, they reached a large chamber filled with glowing crystals. They pulsed with warmth, casting hues of blue and purple across the walls. Lyra smiled, her spirit brightening as she approached the crystals. These are the heart stones, she explained. They can heat your tent at night, and if you learn to control them, you can use their energy for other things too. Jack stood in awe. The crystals were beautiful, and they were exactly what they needed. How do we take them back to camp? He asked. Lyra smiled. Follow me. I will help you collect them safely. As they worked together, Jack began to see Lyra in a different light. She was not just an alien warrior, she was a resourceful and determined survivor. They talked about their worlds, their fears, and their hopes. Jack learned that Lyra had fought solely to protect her home, much like he was doing for his crew. Hours passed, and they gathered a good number of crystals. When nightfall approached, Jack realized they needed to return to camp. On their way back, they encountered another group of soldiers. Jack's heart raced, and he instinctively stepped in front of Lyra. Stay back, he shouted, raising his weapon. She's with me. The other soldiers laughed, their eyes filled with skepticism. You think we'll trust an alien? She's just a spy, Jack. Get rid of her, one of them yelled. Stop, Jack yelled, his voice ringing through the cave. She is helping us. If we don't try, we will lose everything. We need each other, now more than ever. The soldiers hesitated, exchanging unsure glances. Lyra stood behind Jack, her heart pounding. She could feel the fear in Jack, and in an instant, she knew she had to act. Please, she said, stepping into the light. I am not your enemy. I only wish to protect my home and help yours. Together, we can find solutions instead of fighting. The tension in the air was thick, but Jack's courage gave the others pause. Slowly, they lowered their guns. The group had not expected Jack to stand up for an alien. All right, one soldier said, still skeptical. But if she betrays us, Jack nodded firmly. Then I'll take full responsibility. He turned to Lyra, and she nodded back, understanding the promise in his eyes. As they returned to camp, the crystals created a warm glow around them. That night, they lit the fires and shared stories. The warmth of the heartstones filled the air, lifting spirits that had once been heavy with doubt. Days turned into weeks, and the human soldiers learned how to harness the crystals. They built stronger shelters, shared meals, and even began to teach Lyra their language. A bond began to form between them, one that none of them had anticipated. Lyra and Jack grew closer, their friendship deepening. They began to face the realities of their worlds and learned about each other's cultures. Together, they imagined a future where humans and Gazarians could coexist in peace. One night, as they sat by the warmth of the heartstones, Jack took a deep breath. You know, I never thought I'd be sitting next to an alien, let alone calling her a friend. Lyra smiled softly, her heart filled with hope. I once thought all humans were my enemies, but now I see you as a protector, a companion. They looked at each other, understanding that while the road ahead would be challenging, they had taken the first steps toward a future that neither had expected. Let's keep warming each other's beds, shall we? Jack said playfully. Lyra laughed softly, understanding the meaning. They had found warmth not only in the stones, but in each other's hearts, forging a path of unity in a world that had once seemed so divided. Together they could light the way toward a brighter future.